If you haven't done so already, you can check out the deck profile up in the card above, down in the description below, or the previous video on my channel, and it should also be in the normal playlist as well if you're familiar with my channel, also linked down in the description below. But with that being said though, let's get right into the games. So getting to this first game here, well, actually I shouldn't say that. Might not be first favorite, but getting into this game here, I'm going up against Gandeeva. Pretty good starting hand. I got one Tideline Dragon, I got my Order as well, I've got the Depth Iwelith to search out the Mask of Hydrogum, and honestly, PG plus my Diantha is not too bad here. So, oh, the grade 3 is pretty nice. I think I said against Gandeeva. So, of course, I'm just trying to rush here. Would prefer to find my Burrowing Mushrooms because that lets me rush and my opponent would need Best Harvest or else he's not drawing any. Or they're not drawing any. So here, just my opponent just rides up, swings. I choose to take it here after my opponent took a crit from me the previous turn. And there's my Lianorn. So I am actually, there's Masques as well. So I don't really necessarily need to use Depth Iwelith. So I'm actually feeling really good here. I still end up choosing to use it, which makes sense because I can rush here a bit, which I do like doing. And here, Diantha, here I do find my Lianorn Mask, and I'm sitting pretty good. 2 masks, not the best here, but it is what it is. And of course, I was able to loop back because now I've got the In the Dim Darkness to search out for my final Tideline Dragon if need be. So I'm feeling pretty good. So here, my opponent then rides up into Gandeeva, targets the Depth Iwelith, and does find the grade 2. So Depth Iwelith is retired, but I was expecting it. So here, of course, my opponent draws and gets to bind 1 and then bind 1 from the retire as well. Regent here to draw 1 and bind. So, of course, my opponent can plus a little bit here, but with my opponent already at 3 and my setup for next turn, I'm feeling pretty all right. Because even if I can't find the second Tideline Dragon, I do have the grade, what's this called? The new, the Florence here to just kind of push big numbers as well, which I really like. So here, I think, what is my opponent doing? Stigurna. It's changed now in English. Sturgna here to bind and then call the Alphacar, of course, but cannot use Alphacar's ability, so I can easily pick it off. Heal here pretty nice just to kind of maintain because my opponent did have the crit, and Overtrigger just to shut down the rest of the turn. There's my Burrowing Mushroom, so I'm feeling great going into this, just to be able to ride up and just set up and push. I can set up a big board with Burrowing Mushrooms, no problem. Of course, we can see here that my opponent has Best Harvest, is what it is. But here, I just go straight into the Lianorn because I don't want to use old Lianorn's effect. I think I might have accidentally forgotten to do it. No, I was wanting to use the Diantha to recall the Tideline Dragon, which is what I discarded for Rideline, but I did find another one. Sorry, I might be doing this analysis a bit wrong because I was not catching it, but because it's going a bit fast. But here, set up double Tideline Dragon, just kind of standard stuff for Lianorn here. Big push with Lianorn. And my opponent, we can see the Overtrigger there. Does my opponent Overtrigger it? My opponent does, making it no pass. So here, Gradius Gradule, very nice to be able to set Persona right next turn, just set big numbers and with Tideline Dragon. Of course, just swinging in again, and I do, my opponent miscounts there and ends up taking that one and then Gradius second one. So fortunately, not too much done here, but I did whittle down my opponent's hand, which is very nice. My opponent, of course, targeting those 3 and getting the triple retire. So, of course, now getting to bind, draw 3 and bind 3 because of the Best Harvest there. Rebuilding a hand size, not looking too great for me. Like, this is not necessarily the position I want to do, but Lianorn is doing what Lianorn does best. I'm still only at 2 damage. That's not too bad. And I've got a very good hand here to guard and then put on a counter offensive. And my opponent doesn't actually have a way to retire the final Tideline Dragon. Draw here is huge to help me be able to survive. So, of course, swings with Gandeeva, using the Alphacar here to call another card, getting a Stigurna here, and actually choosing to use the Stigurna to bind that. It does get the extra 2k, doesn't get the draw off of it, but does get the ability to retire the final Tideline Drag, which 100% makes sense. You want to get that off the board, but I just use Elementaria Sancta 2 to PG that, obviously saving my other PGs for if I have no cards left in hand, or 1 or less cards in hand to get a free PG. So, yep. Does check that draw trigger there. Pretty powerful. I think it was crit into draw. Or my opponent's adjusting the powers. No, the draw was there. So, yep, there we go. First check, second check. 2 of the Cycler here, the Kogalflin. So here, just kind of guarding the rest of it, because I did check another draw trigger. So drew into Persona Ride, even better. So now I can use In the Dim Darkness to be able to loop back my Tideline Dragon and set myself up very nicely. And of course, I got another Burrowing Mushrooms if I need the soul, but I don't think I actually need it. So of course, just calling the Depth Iwelith, use the Burrowing Mushrooms, just set that up, double Soul Blast here to give my friend plus 20k, and we're just swinging again. Opponent takes the first one, opponent takes the second one, because does not have the best hand to guard here. Swing with Lianorn, chooses to hard guard it, figuring that they need the PG, and makes perfect sense. So here, just saying 2 to pass. Crit, I give all there, In the Dim Darkness again. So here, of course, restand and swing, and at this point, my opponent does PG, but does not have enough to, and takes the final hit. So there's actually a game 2 to this, which is really fun. Really bad opening hand here, but much better here. Burrowing Mushrooms to be able to rush with, 2 orders to be able to discard with my ride line, Diantha here to be able to refuel stuff. So I just need to find myself a Lianorn Masques. Of course, just a Mask Hydro because I don't mind pitching that. And then because I do have another order, which is the one I want to loop back anyway, because I did draw into my Lianorn I found anyway. So and that was the main reason why I was like fine doing this as well, because then honestly, if I needed the mask, I could loop it back anyway. So of course my opponent rides up because I am going first here. I think we did coin toss, so we didn't do a true like game 2 here. So here, getting to go second, call it that. So actually, I wonder if I mislabeled these games because this might be in the other order. No, actually it says in the chat there that we did do heads or tails. So not true match, but we did do a game 2 here. Anyway, so here I decide to guard early because I don't necessarily need Counter Blast going into my first turn, and I knew that they're going to set up this column since I did set up the double, so I'm not feeling too... Oh wait, I was the one on the offense. Haha, I'm lying. Okay, yeah, I do take this one. Overture here. 2 PGs really does hurt, but... and especially off of opponent offensive OT. But I got some Counter Blast to use here, so got another Persona Ride, Depth well if allowing me to thin my deck of 1, getting a Dragon Tree marker. Just kind of setting up again, not too bad in the Dim Darkness because I can just cycle the Burrowing Mushrooms. I end up milling a Tideline Dragon, so hoping to find another way. Oh, I have the Diantha to recur it as well. So I figured now it's just great, set up a big board. I can just do a big push here to try to push. So here, another Into the Dim Darkness, amazing. Heal Trigger, quite nice here as well. Depth well is not too bad, just a 5k guard, need be. So really strong triple drive here, and I just kind of pressure with Lianorn. Lianorn still does a great job of pressuring here, pushing my opponent to 3 as well. But here, my opponent does go Gandeeva, and unfortunately does have the best harvest, but is what it is. Can't always expect my opponent not to have it. Of course, targeting those 2, ends up hitting both of them, so my opponent gets to bind 2 off of the Gandeeva and draw 2 because of best harvest. So here, my opponent also still has some great stuff to be able to set up. He's got double Regent as well as a Stigurna, and here my opponent accidentally throws that down, forgetting that they're not under Persona Ride. But here, just switches off, goes Stigurna to bind the grade 1 to retire that plant token, gets the draw, gets bind, and then, yeah, at this point, my opponent easily has that bind zone here. Again, retire another plant token, and I don't really care too much about the plant tokens getting retired. It's kind of like a nothing card, so I can easily rebuild, thankfully. So here, good setup by my opponent, and then calls out, interestingly enough, the Bernaya. I know it's not a too common card to be run because it can lead to deck out, but here it kind of makes sense just to, obviously if he's ready, he wants to play it out here. So here, PG under draw trigger, pretty strong into a crit. I'll see that. But here, drawing the Alpha Car for next turn as well. That thankfully does not have the Alpha Car, so I can more easily guard this one. Oh, there's another Tideline Dragon I need, but here I'm easily able to stave off. And here, because they do that, my opponent takes 1 damage without being able to heal, which is what I like to see. So here, go Lianorn to draw, call out the Diantha to be able to call out the Tideline. Now I could go into Masques, go into my Lianorn Mask because I do have the card in my drop zone. And Burning Mushrooms is actually great here, so now I can use the In the Dim Darkness Frozen Resentment to see if I can fish. Oh, I did have the second Tideline Dragon. Even better, just power up the front row, and here I believe I just call the Burrowing Mushrooms, and I believe I just load a soul to recall the 1 plant token because there's no reason not to just build up on soul here. So again, just the standard setup. I've got a powerful back row here. I got double Tideline Dragon. It's exactly where I want to be. Which is the guard this one, which is interesting. Takes that one. No trigger there, so didn't get to heal block here. Opponent does PG the Vanguard swing, makes sense. Not too bad with my check. Just take the first one and then just PG's the final one, which makes sense looking at that hand. So my opponent does have Persona right here. Passing back to him, 4 cards in hand. I don't have the best hand to do this, of course, targeting the usual column. And here it does not find a grade 1 to hit the Diantha. Yeah, looking at my hand, because I checked the double PG in damage check first turn, my hand's hurting here. I really don't have a lot of shield value, so I need to be very, very careful with these 4 attacks. Like, it's honestly not looking great here. So my opponent sets up a boss in as well and just swings for 44. I think I do choose to take this one. No, I do not. Okay. I think I'm guarding early when the numbers are lower is the idea. I'm trying to remember what I did here. It's honestly been a while since I played this one. Yeah, I think I'm just choosing to take... I know I have to take the Gandeeva swing, so I'm just hoping to check a heal here. And unfortunately, by pushing my opponent to 5 damage, I do not heal out of it. So arguably, that's something I probably could have looked at the previous turn and maybe started swinging rear guards instead. Calls an Alpha Car off of the Alpha Car, so he can set that up for next turn. And of course, his Vanguard is going to be at +1 crit. And here I just have the no guard. PG, crit. Oh, I'm going to need to find something. Crit and crit. That's not it, unfortunately. So not too bad there, but I think that's the one thing maybe I could have kept at 4 damage. Would have been, it obviously didn't matter here, but it might have been more optimal in other scenarios. So in this match here, I'm up against Orfist Regis, and I believe this is just the D-BT10 stuff. I don't think that the new card from the deck, I forget what the product is, with the Favernil and Graham Gray stuff was out at this time. Here I have an extra Persona Ride copy, so I just discard it because with Orfist, I expect that this game will go very quickly. Set up some cards to rush because I figured why not rush this deck? It doesn't have a big hand size. If I push up to higher damage, I'm more likely to be able to beat it. And also, usually Orfist does not like to guard the early the most. So here, just being able to push 2 damage. My opponent does go a bit aggressive here with Howling Moonlit Knight and the Grunder. I should know this card's name by now. I love this card. They have a pretty strong offense here. I don't know why it says 39,000 power. It should just be 10k. Zero Diantha, unfortunately not good enough. It does swing the Grunder. I just block that one and take the Shadow Army token because it is a bit easier. So here, discard the Burrowing Mushrooms because I already have one. To set up Depth of Well-If, just be able to set up the marker, search out a Mask of Hydro Gum, then the deck of 1 card, and use the Burrowing Mushrooms to set the 2 plant tokens just to be able to swing all at once. Swing Vanguard because I haven't seen OT first, so obviously I would want to get OT power here. Fortunately, my opponent does check defensive trigger. It being a front means I cannot do anything. Opponent rides into Orfist Regis, being able to set up Overcoming and Eternity, and actually uses Eclipse Moonlight from hand. Well, that's only what he had. I don't know why I phrased it that way. It's called another Shadow Army token and gets 5k from the Overcoming and Eternity, and starts swinging. Grunder can easily hit in since I'm still on a grade 2, and obviously gets to loop back. Actually ends up not looping back anything, has nothing else in drop zone. Does hit a here, and to a draw, which is very strong. Let's reset that 1 token just to swing for big numbers. Elementary Sanctitude would prefer to see that in hand. Crit trigger, it doesn't really do anything here. Discard the extra masks because I don't need it to go into Lianorn. And here I'm just choosing how I want to order it. So I do Lianorn first to draw 1 and call 1. So I believe here I just call the Tideline. Yep. And do I have 1 in drop? I do have 1 in drop. So I figured I'd do this first and then the Diantha afterwards. So I didn't go into Lianorn Mask. I think I was wondering if I just draw into it, but I ended up not because I'm over. I don't know why it's hesitant. I don't think it ended up mattering. Arguably there I could have drawn to another Tideline and only need to overcall 1 and keep a card in hand. But you're just doing a standard Lianorn combo with a double Tideline. Really showing off here. I feel like every game that I've shown off so far, I've been able to set up the double Tideline. Dragon is actually surprisingly consistent within the Dim Darkness. So my opponent just trying his best to survive and does actually have it to be able to survive another turn here. And here I have to be very careful with this hand. I feel like I don't have a terrible hand, but I also don't have a great hand either. So here, Thumberino with the Shadow Army token called off the Eclipse Moonlight, just being able to swing for big numbers since my opponent was under Persona Ride. My opponent chooses, asks to take back the Thumberino, which I allow them because they do need the card to discard, which understandable. Interesting. I haven't seen most decks cut Thumberino, but definitely has a purpose there. So I decided to take the first one, figuring that I just needed a defense trigger to make it easier to guard, and I get exactly that. The perfect one, a draw trigger there is amazing. Of course, we have to call 2 with the Orfist Regis' skill, setting up those 2 again. Both of them will swing for 35k. And then into a Critcher is very strong, 45k here. And here, this one's rough. I have to guard this one. Thankfully, with the trigger, I'm able to do that, and he swings 35k, and I have just enough, well, 5k extra to his guard. Still have another copy of Persona Rite. I can easily get back that Tideline Dragon within the Dim Darkness. So at this point, I am looking like I should be able to win it here. Milling PG here shouldn't matter because I'm trying to close out the game here anyway. So set up double Tideline Dragon yet again, and then I banish the Lianorn Masques to be able to pop one just because it really doesn't matter. It just makes better numbers with Lianorn. Since my opponent's at 4 damage, it could theoretically matter. Might be worth it having a 10k booster. Here my opponent just takes 2 because they cannot guard, and that is game. So a bit of a quicker video for Lianorn Masques compared to Astrea Biko Masques, and that's just because I actually played quite a few iterations of the deck, and I was kind of stuck for a bit, and I really didn't like the iterations, and by the time I finally found an iteration of the deck I was really enjoying playing, I was getting really busy, so I only had time to get in those 3 games, unfortunately, but I really do like how this deck ended up running. It was a bit surprising once I really got this build. The previous build I was playing, it was a bit less optimized. I think I was running like more Lianorns, and oh, that's what it was. I was like going full Mask of Hydrogrum here, not running in the Dim Darkness, and I was running Rectina here, which Rectina has a pretty cool combo with Burrowing Mushrooms, being able to call it Burrowing Mushrooms you put into Soul the previous turn, which is really awesome to get 2 extra plant tokens. But alas, I did think that just switching out for In the Dim Darkness just gave this deck the extra consistency it needed to be able to pull off the Tideline Dragon and be able to just use Depth of Well-If. Like this deck pops off strong enough that the resource you have to use for Depth of Well-If is totally worth just be able to find the Mask of Hydrogum overall. And in general, I usually like just running the Rancor Chain Black Tears Husk Dragon anyway. So this build of the deck really did feel great, and I think those games were the ones that were worth showing off, because honestly the other reason I was having issues was because I kept forgetting to draw off the mask, but I'm pretty sure each of the games I showed off this time around I did end up drawing off of them. But yeah, I feel like this deck's actually kind of scary. I mean, you saw the strong pop off there. 2 matches against Gandeeva as well. Like, it showed that this deck does have a strong enough pop off against Gandeeva. I don't know if that necessarily was the most optimized Gandeeva deck, but this deck did show that it can do that. And of course, I love the fun bits with Burrowing Mushrooms against Gandeeva. Like, if Gandeeva does not find their best harvest and you just rush with like, even if they do find it, like, always rush with Burrowing Mushrooms because it puts on a lot of pressure. But if your opponent can't find best harvest, you can easily set up a very pressuring scenario where you can really win against Gandeeva. Of course, relies on not drawing best harvest. That's an argument for best harvest to be choice for the deck. But that's not what this video is about. This is about Lianorn Masques, and that's a phenomenal way to actually face off against Gandeeva. Ended up harping on Gandeeva at the end of that last kind of mini rant. I don't know what to call it, but point is, with Lianorn Masques, this does have a really strong pop-off that definitely makes the deck, I feel like, a lot stronger than the previous iterations were, and definitely a really strong Masques deck in general that you can definitely like play, especially at locals, and have a blast with it overall. I definitely think it has some feet to it, unlike, it definitely is a lot better than Biko Masques. Unfortunately, I should say unfortunately, I just wish Biko Masques was a bit better, a bit more love to that deck overall. But I actually want to hear from you all. What are your lists looking like for Lianorn Masques? What are the differences that you run and why? I'd love to hear down in the comments below. And of course, if you haven't checked out already, I did the same kind of deck profile and gameplay for the Biko Masques. You can find that on my channel as well as in the playlists that I'll have linked down in the description below. If you're excited for that and any other Vanguard content I put out, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you're notified for when I upload more content. But with that being said though, look forward to more content coming out real soon.